Welcome to Craft Time at the Lisbon Hepburn Library. My name is Michelle McClagan and I am the director of the library here in Lisbon. Today our craft is an astronaut craft that goes along with a story that we read about an astronaut on Wednesday. So this is the finished sample that I have already made. This particular craft is really geared towards two different age groups. One age group that has more scissor dexterity and is able to cut more intricate pieces, and the other age group is for younger kids who may not want to do that particular cutting project. So let me put aside my sample and I will show you what comes in the craft kit this week. Your craft kit will have a page with instructions, and it will also have a page with 3 different shapes to cut out. One shape is the astronaut, one shape is the Earth, and the other shape is the rocket ship. Now you'll notice that if you're cutting things out, that you will have some details here. So when I cut out the Earth, I cut it out of blue paper first, and then I cut this again and cut out the parts that would be the land masses, and I went back and cut those out of green paper and glued that to my Earth. What I did with my astronaut is I cut him out of a grayish beige colored paper first, and then I went back and cut out some of the accent pieces for his boots, his gloves, and the little spot on the front of his spacesuit. And I cut those out of some leftovers from the blue. And then what I also did was go back and I used a marker and I drew in some details for his mask and where his arms are and so forth. With the rocket ship, same thing. I cut it out first out of a piece of yellow paper, and then I went back and I cut out the nose and the window out of green cardstock, and then glued them on and used my marker to draw a few details down at the bottom here. So if you have really good scissor skills and you want something that's going to take a little bit of time, I would suggest using the paper that we've provided in the kit and doing these details. So there are your templates. Then you also will have assorted paper. Everyone will have a sheet of black paper, and that is for your background. Everyone will have a sheet of gray or beige or something like that that kind of suits the spaceship. Then there will be a blue sheet and a green sheet to do the Earth. And this particular kit has some slightly brighter colors, so it depends on which kit you grab, what colors of green and blue you will have. And then everybody has a yellow sheet, which is what I used for the spaceship. And I had enough, once I did all of my cutting, to use the leftover blue and the leftover green to do some accent pieces. So there's enough paper for that. In your kit, you will also have a little plastic container with a little bit of white paint. You really do not need a lot of white paint. So when you look at that and you say, wow, she did not give me a lot of white paint, that is true. And you will also have a little toothpick, okay? And what we use that for was to do some stars, some planets, various things in the sky, and it was just a bunch of dipping into the white paint. So you will have those as well. So that is what is in your kit. What you need to provide from home: scissors, something, if you're going to be cutting out the shapes, you will want a pencil or a pen or something to draw and trace with. If you're going to do things the way I did them here, you're going to want some kind of pen or a marker to draw some of these extra little lines. That's what I've got the black Sharpie for. And then you're going to want glue, whether that be a glue stick or a bottle of glue, it doesn't matter. Now, for the younger kids who don't want to do quite so much of the intricate stuff, I would recommend some crayons or some markers, and that the kids would just take these and color them. So the one I'm going to do today in the video is going to be the little kids project. So I have already taken my crayons and I have colored everything with the colors that I've chosen from the particular box of crayons that I have. So I have my Earth, I have my astronaut, and I have my spaceship. So what I'm going to do now is quickly cut out my shapes. And most of the time when we do our craft projects, we do things that are pretty much universal regardless of how old you are. But what I discovered after I put together my first one, my sample that I spent the time cutting things out on, was that it was a little bit fiddly for smaller hands with a little less dexterity with scissors. And I thought, you know, I really like this project. It goes well with the story that we're reading, and let's adapt it so that it can suit some of the younger kids who are, you know, maybe preschoolers or kindergartners who need something a little simpler. So yes, this is a little fiddly with the cutting, and I'm just going to do a really quick job here. Nothing says that it has to be perfect. I found that it was the extras of cutting like in between here and cutting out extra pieces for the land masses to put on the water for the earth that was a little bit more challenging. So we'll give that a little bit of a cut there, and then we'll just come right up here and cut around his boots and the rest of his spacesuit. There we go. And then I'm just going to very carefully, maybe, put my scissors in here and cut out this center piece around the air hose that goes to his air tank so that the black from the paper will show through instead of it just being a piece of white. So little kids may need a little bit of adult help cutting that part out, but you could easily just sort of fold it in half and then nip away at it with the scissors. So there's that one. We'll do a quick cut around the earth here. And then we'll do a quick cut around the spaceship. And admittedly, I did not cut out the little vapor trails that are coming out of the back of the spaceship. I figured that that probably was not the best thing to do, since the astronaut was exploring space outside of the spaceship, and having the spaceship sort of rocket off into another part of the universe was maybe not the best thing, because we don't want him left behind. So I did not use those. And sometimes I hand draw these. Some people have asked this before, and sometimes I get them. We have a subscription to a service that provides some graphics and so forth that we're allowed to use without any violations of copyright. So that is where these particular images came from. So now I have my shapes. I'm going to take my black piece of cardstock and my astronaut. And you'll see that I also tend to use a lot of recycled paper at the library. So there is some printing on the back from something else that we had printed. So I am just going to put a little bit of glue here. And you can put your astronaut wherever you want to. You know, he could be just sort of floating in space, so he doesn't have to be standing vertically up and down. So we'll put the astronaut here, and then we'll grab our spaceship, which is, yes, much smaller than the astronaut, but it is further away. And the perspective of that would be that the spaceship is off in the distance and the astronaut is up closer to us. And then I've got one last piece to glue on, and that is my Earth. So I'm just going to get some glue on the back of that. And you could put that anywhere. You could put it in the middle over here, or you could put it over on the side. And I think I left just enough space here that I can put it up in the corner. And there is my Earth. So that is my project as far as the gluing goes. That gave me a project that was a little easier to do the coloring. And like I said, I just used the crayons here and then cut everything out. And that may be better for some of the younger kids. So the next thing I'm going to do is take my paint and take my toothpick, there is a pointy end and there is a flat round end. You can use either one. I found that when I was doing it, I just give my paint a little bit of a stir here, that I was absolutely fine to use the pointy end. And this is paint that was left over from another week's project, so there's a little bit of a thick spot right there, but it's fine to use. And then just come along, and you want some of your dots to be bigger because some of the stars, the planets, they're going to be closer and they will make a bigger spot of light in the sky. And then obviously some of them are going to be a little further away. So from a perspective point there, they will be less bright and appear much smaller. I am doing absolutely no pattern whatsoever. This is very, very much a random, put some stars in the sky. Now, for some older kids, you may want to get some images of some constellations, and you could do the Big Dipper or something else like that in the sky and have something that was less random than what I am doing. So I'm going to call that done. And I do find that if you have received paints from us before with other crafts, that if you put the lid back on, they do last a while. I mean, this is probably 4, 5, 6 weeks old, maybe. It's a little thick, but it was still perfectly usable. So kids could certainly do another project at home with the leftover paints. So there we go. I will put the lid back on my glue stick and the cap back on my very sharp scissors and show you the two that I've done here. So my original one is this one, and this was with all of the shapes that were cut out of the various pieces of cardstock. And this was the one for younger kids with things that were just colored and then glued onto the black cardstock. And in both cases, I did the white paint and created some stars and so forth in the sky. So that is our astronaut craft for this week. Thank you so much for joining us for Craft Time. We will be here next Friday, also at 9 a.m. with a new craft for everybody. My name again, Michelle McClagan. The library is Lisbon Hepburn Library. Have fun. Bye-bye.